There's something undeniably captivating about the end of the world. There's a kind of paradox in post-apocalyptic storytelling. Despite the ruin, the loneliness, and the sheer loss, we find ourselves drawn to these ravaged landscapes. But why, of all places, do we find comfort and even hope in such desolate settings? From the dangerous wastelands of Fallout to the hauntingly beautiful ruins of The Last of Us, these fictional worlds beckon us in, promising danger, uncertainty, and yet also amazement and possibility. Today, let's explore the allure of post-apocalyptic games, uncovering the truths they reveal about survival, resilience, and our stubborn hope to keep going. In the aftermath of collapse, we're forced to confront our deepest fears, but also our most cherished hopes. Post-apocalyptic games perfectly capture that duality. They show us what we lose when civilization crumbles, but also what remains, and then what can be rebuilt. The appeal starts with the freedom these worlds offer. A post-apocalyptic setting is terrifying. Whole cities gone, governments collapsed, everything you once knew erased. And yet there's a strange sense of liberation in that emptiness. Without the constraints of everyday life, of routines and rules, you're left with a blank canvas. It's like a pure reset button for humanity. Think of the open-ended experiences in Fallout 4 or any of the other Fallout games, where every toppled building has hidden resources and every abandoned house tells a forgotten story. It's like a treasure hunt in a graveyard of the old world. Our imaginations can run wild in these places because the usual social structures, laws, and expectations vanished. Instead, you decide how to survive, where to go, who to trust, and what your moral code should look like in a lawless land. In Metro Exodus, you're not only traversing physically hostile terrain, radioactive tunnels, mutant-infested wastelands, but you're also grappling with moral ambiguity at every turn. Who do you save when your resources run thin? How far do you go to protect your group? These choices feel starkly personal because the world is stripped of the usual support systems. Then there's Horizon Zero Dawn, which offers a different perspective. Centuries after civilization's collapse, nature has reclaimed the Earth, wrapping ruins in green vines and mechanical beasts. It's both nostalgic and unsettling. The emptiness is kind of tranquil, a contrast that evokes a blend of wonder, sadness, and curiosity about humanity's place in the grand scheme of things. We see our skyscrapers turn to relics, and the message is clear. Even the mightiest civilizations can vanish. Scavenging for supplies or confronting mutated horrors, the post-apocalyptic world strips away pretense. It's a mirror reflecting our deepest desires, adventure, discovery, a simpler life free from modern clutter, and our deepest anxieties about losing the structures that keep us safe. This tension between fear and freedom is what I think keeps us playing and ultimately what keeps us coming back. So in these devastated worlds, humanity's survival instinct goes beyond the bare essentials, just food, water, and shelter. We are natural builders. Once the dust settles, we look around and ask, how do we begin again? How do we build back up again? This theme runs through countless post-apocalyptic stories, and especially in video games, revealing that our core drive isn't just to live, it's to rebuild. In Fallout 4, the settlement building mechanic highlights this perfectly. Every wooden plank or rusty tin can you salvage from a derelict house feels like a step toward renewal. You're not really decorating, you're reclaiming lost spaces, trying to forge a sense of home in a hostile world. It's like a personal investment in the future, or a message that wherever humans go, we try to plant roots. State of Decay is a game that does this well as well, introducing the importance of cooperation. When zombies can lurk around every corner, forging alliances and managing group morale becomes super important, as important as scavenging. And it's a reminder that humans thrive when they form communities, dividing labor, sharing resources, and leaning on one another in times of crisis. The bigger the threat, the stronger our instinct becomes to stand together, or at the very least, not face these nightmares alone. There's also the somber lesson from the game Frostpunk, which pushes the concept of rebuilding into brutal territory. You're the leader of a last city on Earth scenario, forced to choose between compassion and survival on a daily basis. Do you enact harsh laws for the greater good, or do you risk the entire colony's future to maintain some of humanity's softer values? It's a gut punch of a game, showing that rebuilding isn't always just about stacking bricks. You have to decide who you become when survival is on the line. The physical reconstruction of society is intimately tied to the ethical lines we refuse to or choose to cross. From these examples, we can see a unifying thread. Even in the harshest circumstances, people cling to hope by creating something new. We rebuild our homes, our communities, and even our moral compasses. It's kind of a testament to humanity's spirit, an echo of our past, sort of reflecting how humanities have always rebuilt after floods or wars or natural disasters in real life. Post-apocalyptic games don't have to just be entertainment, they're kind of modern parables of resilience. Some people might ask, why dwell on ruin and despair when the real world has enough problems? But that's exactly why post-apocalyptic settings can offer this unique escape. The crumbling buildings and silent streets are like a mirror, reflecting back some of our most profound concerns while giving us the space to step away from everyday routines. In Death Stranding, for example, you roam a silent, fractured America, delivering parcels across treacherous landscapes. There's a meditative quality to the journey, long stretches of solitude where the roar of civilization is quieted to a faint memory. In that silence, the game invites players to think deeply about human connection, isolation, and the effort it takes to bridge divides, in the game both literally and figuratively. The Last of Us series, on the other hand, drags us into morally complex situations. Should you sacrifice one life for the potential future of many? Would you choose loyalty over logic? The creators, developers, and writers force us to confront these dilemmas in a world stripped of niceties, revealing that questions of morality don't vanish just because the world has ended. They actually intensify. And every choice you make echoes the values you hold in real life. Even smaller titles like Stray, where you experience a dilapidated city through the eyes of a little cat, remind us of vulnerability. It's a post-apocalyptic environment, devoid of humans, but filled with robots that carry on routines passed down from civilization. It's quiet, it's eerie, but it's oddly touching, prompting you to reflect on the things we take for granted. Things like companionship, shared language, and just the simple act of caring for one another. These narratives and gameplay experiences serve as a refuge, a place where we can practice dealing with worst-case scenarios or test our moral boundaries without real-world stakes. And in doing so, we can come back to our actual lives with fresh perspectives. We can appreciate small comforts, reevaluate priorities, and understand that true crisis reveals who we are. Of course, a lot of people don't think that deeply when they're playing these games, but I think that's a lot of the reasons the writers and developers put these things in. With all the crumbled skyscrapers, mutated beasts, zombies, and desperate survivors, one element consistently shines through in post-apocalyptic storytelling and post-apocalyptic games, and that is hope. We want the player to succeed. We want the characters to succeed. In The Last of Us, Ellie and Joel's bond represents more than just two survivors teaming up. It's a very, very interesting depiction of how hope can manifest in human connection. Even after witnessing unimaginable horrors, we see them sharing small jokes, exchanging moments of genuine warmth, and forging family ties in a world that's lost its humanity. It's a reminder that relationships can flourish even in bleak conditions, or the bleakest conditions. Horizon Zero Dawn again amplifies this hope by placing players in Aloy's shoes, who is a curious and determined outcast, unraveling the mysteries of lost civilization. In the game, you're driven by a need to understand Aloy's identity But in doing so, she also guides humanity's attempt to reclaim the future. And this journey is a testament to the idea that the seeds of renewal are always there. They're just waiting for somebody bold enough to cultivate them. Even Fallout 76, a game that had a bunch of early missteps, evolved into a community-driven experience. Players band together, build settlements, and share resources in a way that show real-world cooperation in a virtual space. Even in fictional, nuclear wastelands, camaraderie and forward-thinking can emerge if we choose it. Hope in these stories is more than a lofty ideal. It works like a force or an anchor that keeps us tethered to our better selves. I think that's the true magic of post-apocalyptic games. They don't simply revel in ruin, they ask us to consider what we would do if forced to start again. Where would we find courage? How would we mend broken bonds? In these dire scenarios, hope is the only thing that makes rebuilding possible. And as players, it's nice to go through a zero-stakes or low-stakes reenactment of what that would be like. Ultimately, our fascination with post-apocalyptic worlds speaks to our desire to understand ourselves. We long to see how we'd react under pressure, or imagine the blank slate of tomorrow to rediscover the essence of what makes us human. These shattered landscapes in the games and ruined cities become stages for exploring the best and worst of who we are. These games remind us that when everything familiar is stripped away, we cling hardest to each other. The importance of community, values, and resilience. We realize that despite the darkness, hope can persist, waiting for us to nurture it back to life. No matter how grim the setting, there's always room for a brighter future. It might sound cheesy, but it's true. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into stories and worlds. And until next time, take care.